This is gonna be fun. Because I might not have been right about one thing, but I was right about another. Hello everyone, Eternal Flame here. Welcome to my chapter review of chapter 233. The battle between Gojo and Sukuna continues. The decisive battle in uninhabited demon-infested Shinjuku Part 11. Because Gege doesn't have creative names. And oh boy, this is a fun chapter because I am really excited for this because I predicted a few things, let's just say that. But anyways, before we get into this chapter, be sure to subscribe if you like anime content like this. It's the easiest way to let me know you like it, same with liking the video. And let's get straight into the vid. So the chapter starts out with Mahoraga and Gojo facing each other, with the narration line, "The hands of the devil finally reach him, Gojo pushed to the brink." And yeah, that just shows just how much damage Mahoraga did with that slash, and more importantly that the slash bypassed infinity, and it was really cool, because we get to see Yuji, Yuta, Hikari, and I think that's still Yuji's worried reacting, but Yuji just being like, he's not finished yet. And I just love the fact that Yuji is the main one who has the faith in Gojo, because Yuji knows that Gojo is him. Yuji is the one who respects Gojo the most, or like one of the people who has the greatest amount of faith in Gojo at this point, and I absolutely love that, because it just shows just how much respect Yuji actually has for Gojo, despite knowing him for like the least amount of time in comparison to a lot of these people other than like Higuruma and all of the Culling Game players. And after we get this line of confidence that Yuji has in Gojo, we get Shoko saying even if it adapted to infinity, they're still on equal footing. And even if he's injured, he can quickly... Oh wait, no, that's not Shoko, that's Yuji. Yuji actually said that, but Shoko's the one who says the next line. And then Shoko says, no, his wounds are clearly taking longer to heal. I'm sure he's still able to use reverse curse technique beyond firing red, but his output is definitely dropping. Sorry, it's likely the same for Sukuna with the damage sustained by his brain. What they're saying is, both Sukuna and Gojo have less RCT output and less of an ability to heal themselves because their wounds are healing much slower now. Or at least she's making that assumption for Sukuna, and it's the same for Gojo, and like they're making the same assumption that they're both going under the same way, which is like, yeah, I get why you're making that assumption, but at the same time, we don't know for sure yet, but it's more than likely the case because Shoko is even mentioning that to begin with. And then we get some narration lines, and I absolutely love this narration line because of what it does for Gojo's character, and it's great. Like, it's gonna make my video I'm making on Gojo's entire character gonna be so much better at the end. I'm so happy that I didn't upload that video yet. The line says, "The possibility of Gojo Satoru losing flooded their minds. All thought the idea to be in some respects impossible, but in this moment, even with the strongest in history, the King of Curses as his opponent, the same thought struck Gojo himself." As Gojo says, how long has it been? And then he thinks back to Toji, and he says, well, that goes without saying. And yet, just as signs of defeat show, so too rushing feelings of a feeling much more intense. Satisfaction, the loneliness that comes with absolute strength. The one satisfying him now is, and then he just stops that thought and just socks Mahoraga right in the face. And I absolutely love that. I love that so much. It's like, the reason why that I love it so much is it shows Gojo is still human. Gojo still has doubts. Gojo has doubts about himself on if he can win, but then he just decides to ignore those doubts for the sake of his students and for the sake of winning, for the sake of getting Megami back. He just doesn't care and is like, okay, I can't feel these doubts right now, and socks Mahoraga right in the face, and I absolutely love it. It's like, it just shows how much Gojo absolutely cares about his students and how much of a champ he actually is, and it makes Mahoraga choke and everything. Like, I do think he was resolved with that punch too, and then he immediately fires off, and he immediately yeets Mahoraga away with that attack, and it's sick. It's just, to talk about the scene a little bit more, I absolutely love the usage of narration and thoughts, and having the narrator and a character's thoughts sync up with each other, and then the action of a character follow after. It's just always been super sick, in my opinion, and I wish more people did it, because it's really, really cool. And then the battle continues, where Gojo starts to chant in order to recover his RCT, beginning a chant which is called out by both Kusakabe and Shoko. And then he uses Curse Technique Reversal Red, only for the rabbits to be used in order to allow Mahoraga to escape. As Gojo then says, looks like the Black Flash worked like a charm. How long are you gonna rest for? And it's clear like the Black Flash did stun Sukuna and wind him a little bit. I don't think that the Black Flash knocked Sukuna out. Let me just get that out the way. It genuinely doesn't make sense that it knocked him out because he was still able to summon Mahoraga. When people's eyes usually go white, it means they're winded, not knocked out. Look at Mahito versus Nanami and Yuji. The entire time his eyes were white because he was getting bombarded and he was being winded repeatedly on each impact, but he was not being knocked out. For anyone who just doesn't think it makes sense for Sukuna to be able to do this by being knocked out. It's then the battle continues with Gojo using a red directly on Mahoraga, but Mahoraga remaining, with Mahoraga and Sukuna now on the offense against Gojo. Mahoraga being used to land direct strikes on Gojo and disable his barrier, while Sukuna is being used to be on protection duty to make sure Gojo can't take out Mahoraga easily, because Mahoraga isn't fully adapted to Gojo's attacks quite yet. We get Sukuna then throwing a fire hydrant at Gojo and blinding him through it. I'm really guessing that he put curse energy into the fire hydrant to blind him, because if he didn't, this doesn't make any sense, so that's more than likely what happened, with Mahoraga just on the ceiling. And I love this panel of it so much, because it's just like, this man's just vibing, because he's like super huge, right? But he's just chilling on the ceiling, getting ready, like, I'm gonna jump you, I'm gonna soon jump down and I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna stab you so hard. And it's just kind of funny to me, as it's then Sukuna uses the piercing blood without even needing to summon the Shikigami, and it's like, this man can manifest the parts of the technique without actually needing to summon the Shikigami itself. And I really like that Sukuna can do this, because it makes a lot of sense, because Sukuna just has mastery of the 10 shadows up to this point that no one else has had up to this point. Sukuna is not just amping it with cursed energy, he's using it better than anyone in history has. And that is something about Sukuna that should be noted. He is a lot better than any previous user in history, and he has made the technique his own. He made it his own when he tamed Mahoraga, and he made it his own with the way he experiments with it. No one else could have guided Sukuna on how to use the wheel the way he did, because he did it on his own. And for people questioning why Sukuna didn't do this ability with the wheel in specific, that's because the adaptation itself doesn't really apply here. What I think Sukuna is doing is he's only using like a partial summon of the ability, and he's only summoning like the ability for a second from his shadow before launching it out. That's at least my explanation of it, where in his shadow he somewhat manifested the elephant, but he also didn't really manifest. Like, he manifested for long enough to launch out the water for him to shape it into a piercing blood-like shape, which, by the way, Choso immediately calls out that's in the shape of piercing blood, and it's likely even more powerful too. The reason why I think this is the case, by the way, is because we know it's at least possible to summon the wheel within the shadows, and the shadows can kinda act like a portal, so I feel like there's just Mahoraga, well, not Mahoraga, I feel like there's just the elephant inside of his shadows, just chilling, launching out water, and getting ready to launch it out for Sukuna the shape and turn into the, what's it called again, piercing blood arrow, or well, piercing hydro water arrow. I need a better name for it. The piercing aqua. Piercing aqua. That's great. I'm calling it that now. So, yeah, that's kind of just really strong. And Gojo immediately notices that as soon as Mahoraga attacks, now Sukuna can attack as well. Which means Mahoraga, each time it touches Gojo, will deactivate the barrier, allowing Sukuna to attack. So now all of the 10 shadows could hypothetically get involved, and more importantly, Sukuna can use his technique now. So, this will be fun. So it's time for a very long narration line, so let's just get into it. I am gonna, paraphrase it. So he isn't just devoting himself to defending Mahoraga. Sukuna will now use it to attack openly, and it's now a 2v1, and on top of that, Sukuna can manifest Max Elephant's water to create piercing blood. Gojo says he's as handy as I am. He's using Shikigami other than Mahoraga now since the adaptation into infinity is complete, and he has more resource to allocate. Unless he applies it externally to his domain, he can't use his shrine and the 10 shadows simultaneously. In that case, it should take longer to adapt to the reversal red than curse technique lapse. I much prefer that to having Mahoraga pluck cards from my hand one by one. And there's a few things I need to establish with that before we get into the next part. My strategy that I put out to beat Mahoraga would have worked. It 100% would have worked, just Gojo didn't give it because he immediately went for a red. But my strategy would have likely worked if he could just manage to get the time. So yeah, that's feeling great. But more importantly, Gojo's complimenting Sukuna and his adaptability because, yeah, they're both really smart. They're both using their techniques in different ways because they are non-standard users, and that is what makes them powerful. It's not that they have strong techniques, it's that they are using their techniques. That is what makes them strong. And I absolutely love that about them. And just Gojo's analysis of the fight, it's really good. And just, yeah, this narration line, it's really good. Or not a narration line, it's Gojo's thinking line, it's really good. Oh, and one final part that is probably the most important. Sukuna can't use 10 shadows and his technique at the same time. He has to swap in between techniques, which that kinda confirms more than anything that you cannot use 2 curse techniques at the same time. You can only focus on one, which is why Yuta or Kenjaku can't stack techniques. He has to choose which one he's actively using and swap between them, like hot swap between the 2 techniques at a time, which makes a lot of sense, especially with what's already been implied up to this point. And then Sukuna says, "Don't misunderstand, this isn't a 2-on-1, and partial totality is now arrived. Or, well, not partial, just full-on totality has arrived like I predicted a while back would happen with my Megumi's full potential vid, as he combines Nue and totality to create a fusion beast, a totality beast. Now, I saw some people thinking this was the 9th Shadow and 9th Shikigami, but this translation just proved them wrong, and I was right. The combination beast is now here. And for those of you wondering why this beast is able to keep up, Shikigami gets stronger alongside the user. This was something that was stated by Mahito a while back when he was talking to Junpei. So yeah, it got much stronger too. The base of Nue and totality got much stronger due to Sukuna being much stronger. And this thing looks like it's a big totality, much more than just Nue and totality itself. So I think there's more involved because the antlers imply Madoka deer, and it has a snake tail too. So I think it's a lot more than that, but at the same time, if we're just going off what's told to us, we know for a fact it's at least totality and Nue, and it's going to be sick, which means it also has lightning abilities, and this is not going to go well for Gojo, especially because he has Max Elephant too that he can manifest, which means he can combine the lightning abilities with his arrow, and yeah, there is a lot to talk about another day, because I want to make a full power of totality and what a hypothetical full power totality would look like, and how strong that would be, but that's for another day. And then we get Gojo being his classic meme self, just whispering, "Dude, you look like a lost little alien boy with his 2 weird fathers that are just really weird with magical powers," and it's really funny. Sukuna, you can tell he found it funny, just by the little smirk he has, just never change, Gojo, never change. As the battle continues with all 3 of the beasts just jumping them at once, as Sukuna rises out from his shadow to fire out a piercing aqua directly at Gojo's back, and Gojo's just trying to have to dodge them all, but he specifically has to dodge Mahoraga, if I'm being honest, because so long as Mahoraga doesn't hit him, they can't hit him. His main focus should be on Mahoraga, which is what he's trying to do, as he fires another red at Mahoraga's back. I might have gotten this wrong earlier, this is the point where we fired the red, but Mahoraga just tanked it. As Gojo said, effective but barely, and not just because my output's on the decline. He only took 1 hit from red and head on at that, so is that adaptation gradual rather than a binary 0 to 100? And Gojo just basically makes the decision that he needs to use his unlimited ultimate hollow technique, and that is where the chapter ends off. And this is a really, really good chapter in my opinion. I have a lot to talk about. So up first, one of my theories were directly proven right because of this simple fact of it's possible to combine a totality with Nue, which means it's possible to combine 3 Shikigami, so yeah, what I see being very likely is just a massive totality beast between all of the beasts coming up likely. And here's another thing, right? If Mahoraga dies, that might actually go worse for Gojo. As another comment pointed out to me named Metal Hammer 1993, they were thinking that it's not that Gojo killing Mahoraga is a threat. Gojo killing Mahoraga is likely to happen, but if Mahoraga dies, it's going to totality to the other 10 Shikigami, and I think that's more likely to happen now. I think this man's prediction is much more likely to happen, and just a massive totality beast, chimera beast between them is coming. And even if Mahoraga dies, that might just be a trap to create the ultimate shadow. The ultimate 10th shadow that is going to be used in battle against Gojo, and that's just going to be really bad, because this is not a new beast, this is a combination, so it more likely means Mahoraga can be combined with other beasts, and just Sukuna doesn't want to do that quite yet, but he wants to wear down Gojo a bit, because with Sukuna already being a naturally strong person, and stacking that on Mahoraga being incredibly strong, yeah, Mahoraga is now even stronger, and then just to wear down Gojo a bit, and then you stack that on to make an even more powerful totality. It's just absolutely terrifying. My video on a theory on how to take out Mahoraga would have worked, because it's proven that red was effective on Mahoraga, which means my strategy would have worked, which is just stalling for time while you make a little bit of reds. And that is what Gojo should have done, but at the same time, Gojo is much more head-on of a person, so I'm not surprised he didn't do that. It would have worked, but yeah. Well, he would have had to figure out a way around Sukuna and now the Fusion Beast, but that is what it is, and Sukuna would have recovered CE. So it would have might worked, but it also might not have worked. We don't know. But I just know that it's more likely to work now, and it's not completely off the table, so that's a really fun thing to know. The battle and the choreography for this fight was amazing. Seeing Gojo actually have doubts about himself, I loved, because it humanizes Gojo so much more, rather than Gojo just being this extremely confident guy and this extremely confident, I am the strongest type of person. Because here's my thing, and I'm going to talk about this a lot more in my Gojo analysis video. I think Gojo is the strongest because he's Gojo, not Gojo is who he is because he's the strongest. But I'm going to go much more in depth with that in my actual character analysis video of Gojo. Overall, I really like this chapter. This is by far the best chapter in the entire fight between Gojo versus Sukuna, in my opinion. Getting to see the characters, then their worriness, a reference back to Toji, Mahoraga versus Gojo starting, Gojo fighting the 3 Shikigami at once. It just overall was really sick. And Sukuna's usage of all the Shikigami was really smart. I really like it. Finally, give it an explanation how I think Sukuna can use Max Elephant's ability without actually summoning it. It is summoned inside of his shadow. He's just creating a really small opening in his shadow for him to manifest the ability itself, and then unmanifest the ability after closing off the hole in his shadow to make sure the beast isn't affected, and he can use the beast as a projectile-like thing while using it in the piercing blood-like method. Anyways, that's my entire review of the chapter. That's all I gotta say. I'm gonna see y'all later. Peace.